Good morning, everyone. My name is Jimmy King, Olu Jimmy King. I first want to say thank you very much to my childhood friend, Kalada Apiafi, for inviting me to come do this presentation. I really appreciate it, and to me, I'm really humbled to be part of this fantastic birthday celebration. I want to introduce myself first, so in case you didn't know me, you have an idea of where I'm coming from and what permits me to be able to make this presentation about export out of Nigeria or maybe out of some other countries in Africa. I started exporting 30 years ago, maybe a little bit more. And primarily, I have been exporting fabrics, soft drinks, shea butter, and carvings and sculpture and things like that, paintings. I went to school in San Francisco. I studied textile in Chelsea School of Art in London. And I did business administration at City College in San Francisco. And came back home to Nigeria in the 80s, early 80s, and started my fabric textile design business. I'm third generation textile artist. My grandmother was a textile artist, and my grandfather was a bespoke tailor from Sierra Leone. By the way, I'm Nigerian, and, but my mom is Sierra Leonean. Now, I found out that there was great demand for my products in the States and in Japan. So I intensified on production and looking at what the demand was. I was lucky that the demand for Africa-oriented, or they call it Afrocentric things, like garments and paintings and fabric and all kinds of things that were Afrocentric, kind of started in the 80s, and it peaked in the maybe late 90s. So I was right there on the ground when it started. And the first couple of places I went to, one was in Washington D.C. and the other one was in New York. They bought everything that I took into their shops and asked for more. So then I figured, okay, wait a minute, something must be happening. But before then, a guy called Chris Onyemem had been to my shop in Lagos at 137 Ogunlana Drive in Surulere, and he bought my store out. He bought all the clothes I had in my store, and he took them to North Carolina. So that gingered me to really start exporting, because it meant that there was a demand for my products. But anyway, to cut a long story short, 30 years after, I'm so happy and delighted that I went into the business, because as I've been able to sustain myself, raise my children through college, and more, and cousins and nieces and nephews, But anyway, I'm going to start with the pitfalls in export business. First, you must try and avoid perishables, because I know of instances like in Spain where we exported some seafood, and upon arrival, the buyer supposedly colluded with the customs, and they claimed that the goods were bad, and they confiscated it, and later on we got to learn that the goods were in the market. But anyway, it's seafood. There's no guarantee on seafood that it's going to arrive at the destination either live or fresh. So unless you have a foolproof technique that you can use in exporting seafood, either by air or by sea, in a refrigerated container by sea. I would avoid it because the risk is too much. Because anything could happen. The freezer could stop working and everything gets bad. Seafood is very sensitive. But anyway, the other pitfall you might want to guard against is getting paid. So you need to do your research really well and make sure that you get paid before you deliver. So you're looking at working with the banks, with CIF, that's Cost, Insurance and Freight, or FOB. So whichever you're comfortable with, I would suggest that you're better off to make sure the money is in the bank before you ship the goods. And you have the SGS inspection, and there's a lot of hurdles you need to jump over to really make sure that your goods arrive intact and you get paid. The third one is you have to make sure that your goods meet international standard. So there will be no arguments about the quality and this is not what I expected. You have to make sure that all the labs that test goods in Nigeria or in the country of origin get the certification that you require. In other words, what I mean is you get the certification required by your buyer or by the country where the goods are going into. Make sure everything is in order before you ship. There's no cutting corners. There's no trying to bribe somebody abroad or trying to make sure that beg people for. There's no need to beg. Make sure everything is in order, and then you're 100% foolproof. So there'll be no arguments when the goods arrive. The third thing is make sure that your quality control at the source of supply, meaning that the people you're buying from, make sure that the quality meets the quality that you send as a sample to your buyer. So if you have to be there in person to make sure that what you're shipping, because once everything is packaged, there's no way for you to inspect every single one of them. So you have to make sure that the finishing or the quality of whatever you're trying to export meets international standard and is the same product that you sent as a sample that you're shipping to your buyer. Now, it can be a very sweet business if you cross your T's and dot your I's. But it's also a very risky business because there's so much involved. Because once the goods leave your hands and they go overseas, you have very little control over the goods. Now, also, Africa is very fertile and is very it's quite full of rodents. You have to be careful if you're shipping wood stuff or food stuff. There are rodents that hide in things like in beans or some vegetables, or even in the insects that hide in stuff like fish, dried fish or roasted fish that I've seen myself. Once the customs in a foreign country sees any traces of insects, because they don't want your insects from your country to come and pollute or multiply in their country and destroy vegetation or kill other insects, because there's a delicate balance in the ecosystem in every country or in the world. So we have to be sure that the goods are free of rodents and insects, because once the customs abroad, they're going to inspect your goods. You can be sure of that. In the West especially, they're going to inspect, and once they find any sign of anything crawling inside, they're going to confiscate the whole thing or try to fumigate it at your expense. So fumigation could run into thousands, depends on which country. I know people who have shipped carvings and foodstuff and things in a container from Nigeria to the States. And the agent, that's another thing, the agent that you choose or use in Nigeria has to be straightforward. There are very few of them that are straightforward, for your information. So they have to play straight so that your goods do not take forever on the seas. If you're shipping a container, it does not take forever on the seas to get to the destination, and your customers have already lost hope in delivery, and you could lose the business. So the person that I was referring to shipped the goods from Nigeria, and they paid premium that they wanted to be express. It was less than a month to arrive in the States, because you have options. You could do like a kabu kabu, where it's stopping everywhere, the ship is stopping everywhere before it gets to your destination. So instead of the agent to pay the right amount, he went on and cut corners and did the kabu kabu instead of the express. So the goods went to Europe first, went to Italy. They searched it in Italy. They found some rodents. They fumigated it. They charged that for it, like $4,000. And then went on to the States. They saw it. They had a note attached to the container in the States, from Italy. When it got to the States, the customs did the same thing. She had to pay maybe $4,000 or $5,000. And then they sent it back to Nigeria. She had to pay another, God knows how much, $4,000, $6,000, $7,000 to ship it back to Nigeria. And when the goods arrived in Nigeria, they had to even charge her again. The shipping company had to charge her for demurrage, for all kinds of stuff, So, and it was like at the end of the day, she didn't make any money on the goods. She lost money. And then she turned around and sent it back.